Everybody, this is Big Swiss. I am back with another episode of The Process, and I'm excited to have a conversation with the TLS member, Mike Wise. He's got an EP dropping tomorrow. It's called Faith Talk. It's going to be on Bandcamp. You guys are going to love it, and I'm really excited to kind of get into the creative process with Mike. Mike, how you doing tonight? What's
What's
going
up,
on?
man? How you doing? Thank you for having me. Shout out to 520, man. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, man. We love supporting the indie hip hop culture. Man, y'all are working this year. Like TLS dropped y'all dropped that album, that collaboration album, and then each of you have seemed to be dropping EPs lately, and you're dropping Faith Talk tomorrow. Man,
Yeah,
how are you feeling about that?
man. Excited, nervous, whole bunch of different feelings. Mainly excited though. But I would be fronting if I said I wasn't nervous a little bit.
Yeah.
You always want people to receive your work the way that you intended to give it. But overall, man, I'm definitely excited and grateful for just the
Yeah.
opportunity to have anybody listen to it.
That's funny you say that. I got in a conversation with a coworker the other day, and we were actually talking about the Barbie movie, and she like texted me and she goes, "Hey, don't go into the movie thinking about any of the politics. Just enjoy it." And I was like, "But I can't do that. Like, I'm going to watch the movie and take away from it what the artist wants me to take away from it. Like, it would be a disservice to the director and everyone who worked hard to like." Create something for me to take away from it. Spoiler alert, I hated the movie, but I still did the service of the director to be like, what do you want me to take away from it? I didn't like what I took away from it.
Right.
So you're saying that like you want people to take away what you want from this album. What are you expecting
Right.
people to walk away from it with?
So there's twofold, which is the whole point of the project, right? We got faith, and then we got talk, right? So faith represents the spiritual side of things.
Hmm.
And the talk with the W represents the way that I'm delivering that spiritual side, right? And so the goal is to combine those things, right? The
Hmm.
things of the kingdom, the concepts of faith, and having everything that I'm talking about is kingdom related. And we know that the keys to the kingdom is faith. It's impossible to please God without faith, right? And so, like that aspect of things, but then giving you it from the gritty side from sonically to where like your face is scrunched up. So you're driving a little faster than you intended to that day. You know what I mean? So like that's kind of what I want people to get, and as they listen more and more, hopefully they're able to extract some revelations and things that God may be saying to them.
Yeah, man. Well, you ended up sending me a copy of it about 2-3 weeks ago, and I got to sit with it. And you talked about scrunch face. I think that's the first note I sent you was a gif of like just someone just go because that's exactly what happened. As soon as the beat drops and then you start rapping, that cadence comes in, and you just have this like raspy kind of like flow voice to it that just it's kind of guttural. It's very like aggressive, but not over the top,
Right.
and so I think that people will take that away from this. I mean, this is definitely something that I would play with the windows down. I'm known as the guy at work like that you can hear driving into work. So this is definitely the album that I think people are going to feel that, and I think it fits into like a pantheon of sound that I think a lot of people haven't heard in a long time.
Mm.
You know, we were talking before we started recording about some of the soundscapes that I was picking up because I come from like a really Midwest, like early 2000s West Coast living legends, Midwest rhyme sayers, East Coast def jux. Like those were the things I was listening to. And so those are things I picked up on. I think people are really going to latch on from like that era.
Mhm.
But I think you're also exposing kind of this new sound to this, at least like this East Coast Philly.
Mhm.
Talk to me about that sound. Like, how did you come up with it? Because it's still distinct from that sound, but it reminds me of that sound, right?
Yeah, I'm still figuring it out myself. I know, as I started to create more boom bap styles and things like that. Um, I lived in Miami, right, for a while, So I went to high school in Miami, but I was born in Philadelphia and I was raised in Philadelphia. And when I went down to Miami, and I think so when I was coming up, I was listening to Jay-Z and Cassidy and Freeway and Beanie Siegel and Reed Dollars, battle rappers and stuff like that. And then I went down south to Miami, and those artists down there, they have a different style. But one thing
Mhm.
that stood out to me was the bass, right? And so the bass drum really just hit. And so I think now what you hear is like a collective of that. From the lyrical side, you hear the lyrics of a more technical style of rapping from myself, but
Yep.
then from the musical side, I want to give you that bass and that feel, like how I felt when I was riding in Miami to songs that I may not have enjoyed, but the bass made me feel something. And so now
Yeah.
I try to and just put that in all of my songs.
You brought up like technical writing style. I think your cadences are really like refined, and then as well like the way you do metaphors. There's a couple songs where I had to play back like, wait, what do you say? Wait, what do you say? What does that mean? Like I had to think about it real quick. How do you get into that headspace? Like, what is your process to get into writing like that? Is there like a specific thing that you hear or do that gets you inspired to do it, or is it like a practice that you do regularly and just try to refine?
It's a little bit of both. I watch battle rap.
Okay.
Big battle rap fan. Um, and that in itself, the way that the way that I feel when I hear certain bars or certain lines, right? And it's a it's a almost like a revelation, right? So where it's like when somebody makes a correlation that I have to think about, and then in my brain it comes to life, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh man, that's dope. I get it, right? And I like it, right? And
Yeah.
so that's how I approach my writing for people to do that, for people to get that and receive that. But I also take it a little bit deeper because not only are you going to get the actual punchline, if you will, or the scheme or whatever it is that I'm doing technically, but there's also a spiritual principle or a kingdom teaching behind that line as well. Um, Almost 100% of the time that I'm referring to. So you have the natural side and the spiritual side combining. So if you get the natural and you're like, oh, that's fire, right? But then maybe in church your pastor say something, you're like, hold up,
Yep.
right? Like, you know what I mean? So that's really the thought process behind that. So and I love wordplay. So I'm like correlating words and how can I say this word 5 times? Or what's the other meanings behind this word? Or
Hmm.
things like that, just unlocking doors, so to speak,
Yeah.
as I'm creating.
Yeah. I remember the first time I gave the album a listen. It was in the car actually, and my wife was in the car, and I would be like, "Ooh," or like, "Oh, that was dope," and she's like, "What are you hearing?" And because she doesn't listen for like lyrics, she listens for, well, she's starting to listen for lyrics. I'm kind of changing her a little bit. She loves hip hop. She goes to all the shows with me. um but like she's not quick to pick up on patterns. Most of the time she's like, wait, I can't even understand what they're saying, they're
Right.
rapping so fast. But I'm like, no, you got to listen to the, it's like I'm teaching her how to hear
Mhm.
for these things.
That's
But
right. That's
how
right.
do you, so man, this is interesting. I've noticed a lot of people in CHH Twitter tweeting battle rap. It's actually something I haven't watched in
Mhm.
probably 20 years because, in like San Francisco, Oakland area, you would go to a show and see battle rapping happening in lines and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Who do I need to look out for? Like, who's the guy? Who's your guy that you're like, every time this guy's on, he's going to win, and I want to study
Um,
his style.
so I mean, I have a couple of artists that I really enjoy, but I would be remiss not to shout out the Christian battle rappers, man. So like A Ward, Low Soul, Street Hymns, the Saga. Those are some really dope Christian battle rappers
Okay.
that I really enjoy. They're all fire. They're technical writers, punchline schemes, performance, all types of things, and they're high up within the battle rap space, to where they're highly respected battle rappers. So like those guys, if any Christian people are watching this and you're trying to look at something, I think that's the place to start with one of those guys.
Okay. Yeah, I remember Loso did a track with Abel. earlier
Mm-hmm.
this year, and that
Yep.
was pretty fire.
Mm-hmm.
And Abel's in Philly. Are you still in Philly right now? Or are you in? Are you okay? You are. And
Yeah,
Abel's in Philly.
correct.
Truth is in Philly.
Truth is in everybody says that. I mean I'm doing a good job. Now you know no, truth is in Chicago.
Okay, he's in Chicago. That's right. I knew that. I don't know why I said that. Prodi's in
Philly.
Philly.
Mm-hmm. True flow.
Q Flow's in Philly. Man, y'all are like building a camp out there. Like what? How does the
Untitled. Gotta shout out my man Untitled.
Untitled? Yeah, Untitled's out there. So how is TLS received in Philly? Because whenever I mention y'all out here in Texas, people are like, "Who?" And I'm like, "Oh, you ain't listened to this yet?" Like,
Mm-hmm.
and so is that what's it like in Philly? Because
I
it's a
think
very different sound than Texas sound.
yeah, I think it's a little bit of the same because we haven't, as a group, as a unit, we haven't moved probably as best as we could, or consistent as we could as a unit. But what I do know is like Abel, Prodi, Q, like they're very well respected within the space within this within in the city. I'm myself still up and coming. Shout out to them because they definitely look out and help me out and give me shout outs and putting people on to who I am and everything like that. But I think they're very well respected as artists individually, but as TLS as a whole, I don't think too many people know about TLS in that way.
So yeah, man, let's talk about that. I have a lot of Texas people that watch this. So
Mm-hmm.
tell me about the listening session, how to get started.
Mm-hmm.
What's your guys' whole like? What's your spiel for
Mm-hmm.
TLS?
So TLS got started by Q Flow and Mitch Durrell.
Shout out Mitch.
Yeah. So what happened? They just their thought process was just to put together a community where we can kind of throw ideas at each other, uh, hear songs and give feedback to help strengthen your skill set and be better as an artist. Excuse me. And that's what it started as. So they start throwing people in there, and that started from Critique Fridays, Rapzilla.
Yeah.
So that from there, they started that, and they decided to invite a bunch of people, and their intention wasn't even to become anything. It was just a group chat. Hey, drop in your rough drafts, and we can critique it, see what we can do better, et cetera, et cetera. And that's what we were doing. And we realized that, man, a lot of people in here are really dope.
Yeah.
And so like then it became, hey, we should do a project, and we talked about that for like a year or 3 or however long. We just toss it around every now and again, and then everybody would agree, but we really never would do it. And then Truther one day, just after one of those conversations, he really started to kind of start like spearheading the all the logistics about the project, what that would look like, who would be willing to do it, and beats, et cetera, et cetera. And then it just started to go. And from there, we look up and we're like, oh man, we got 17, 18 tracks, and we already had started collabing with one another also, so that kind of made it a little easier as well.
Yeah, y'all are kind of like the Wu Tang now, in my opinion, of CHH. Like you just got a lot of wide variety of rappers, but you all still kind of fit this
Mhm.
East Coast kind of sound.
Right.
Um,
And it's not really like I wouldn't even call it like, I want to make sure I say this, that it's not like a collective. It's more
yeah,
so of a community of people who make songs with each other every now and again.
yeah,
And it's weird because the response from that we received from the project is like we would be we wouldn't be smart if we didn't do it again.
yeah.
But at the same time, the logistics around it isn't as easy because it's 40 something people in there, So hopefully we'll be able to get something done or some. That's why we're dropping a lot of singles for people. But yeah, it's just kind of one of them things where it can be a little difficult.
Yeah, but for us, like the fans,
Mm-hmm.
because you did that, you exposed everyone to probably 10 new artists in that project. And
Right.
now they're following. And then whenever I see any of you guys collab, I know it's gonna be fire.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is a smart marketing move to do it as a community like that and still have your individual sounds as well, right? Like
Yeah.
it works in a way that allows y'all to support each other and then put each other out, right? Like, you know, in your EP, you have Q, you got Q Flow, you got Cyrus Sonata,
Mhm.
who, in my opinion, is one of the best up and coming producers.
He the goat, man. Yeah,
Dude, he's
that boy,
wild.
that boy is a monster. You hear me? He's a monster.
I would pay money to just sit in a room and watch him make a beat, like, and just be like, how'd you do that? Like, I want to know what you hear to make what you make.
It's phenomenal, man. He's a very brilliant mind in the space that I look forward to people really getting familiar with.
Yeah. So for your new project, you're releasing it on Bandcamp.
Mhm.
This is your first time doing that.
Yes.
So this is me telling y'all watching, go buy the project. It's worth it. But with Faith Talk, I think you kind of get into a lot of like interesting metaphors about just like complacency and kind of the, at least in the first song, you definitely had a bar about complacency that really stuck out to me, to the point where you're doing this really grimy, kind of back to what you were saying about how you are a technical rapper too. You're doing this really grimy, mean mugging face song, but there's like three layers deep that you're like actually trying to say something outside of just um trying to show off your skill. Like, you're actually trying to communicate to us in a way that talks about how we should enact our faith. What are you seeing in the space that inspires you to write like that?
Um. Well, I wouldn't. I was honestly, I wouldn't say just in the space, because I think the space of Christian hip hop is a reflection of the body of Christ.
Mm,
I know some people may not agree with that, but we're all believers, and
yeah,
so it's like kind of like
that's fair.
you have no choice, right? But so I see immaturity.
Yeah,
And again, I'm not speaking about any individual, but as a whole and collectively, I think we as a body needs to be more mature on spiritual things and kingdom-minded things. And I think we've allowed, some carnality in there every now and again, and in some places, in some instances, a little too much, which it has no space for at all. When we're trying to live out this thing called faith, right? So to me, in trying to mature myself as a believer, and what God is showing me and how God is growing me, it's like as I look around in the space and in the body of Christ, there's just certain things that we should kind of be past, right? We should be past the milk, right?
yeah,
And we should be on to the meat. And a lot of times we're having recycled conversations on milk
yep,
issues that has really no like it's not really helping anybody really, and at the same time, we're doing it on platforms for the world to see us do it, and so it's just to me that's immature.
yeah, man. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think it's definitely a um I want to say this in the nicest way possible for people watching. Like, there's definitely a sanctification that goes along with that carnality, right? Like, you have the new believer that's overzealous, then you have like the kind of, like you said, the young believer that's still on milk, which Paul talks about, um, and then you got those that are eating meat. And I was talking about this in the 520 chat actually last night, about like, we were talking about specific things that we are constantly talking about, and I had to like put it down of like, I think it's just a sanctification thing, right? Like, it's as you get deeper in the word, as you get deeper in your faith, you get more convicted about specific things. That doesn't mean that these other people are necessarily bad or sinning or
Yeah,
whatnot. They're still on the same track. We're all running on the same track.
yeah,
We're just running at different paces.
right.
But what I don't see, and I think this is a product of just hip hop culture,
Mhm.
like not Christian hip hop culture, just hip hop culture, is a lot of people don't like accountability in our
Yeah.
space.
Mhm. And that's hilarious as a believer, right? Who has the Holy Spirit, who ideally should be holding us accountable throughout our days.
Mhm.
So I mean, it's so to then we should kind of get to a place where um, that becomes our normal accountability because we want to do it for ourselves because
Yeah.
we want to be Christ-like. You know what I'm saying? And so then you holding me accountable, right, on things of the kingdom, right? Because
Mhm.
you're my brother. Um, I don't then take that opportunity because you live in Oakland and I live in Philly to separate us, right?
Yeah.
You don't know me like that. This just Twitter. This just when you're saying a kingdom principle,
Yeah.
right? You don't need to be in my space to say a kingdom principle and me to recognize that and then make the correction. You know what?
Yep. You're 100, and I think too, like we're too prideful to admit when we're wrong.
Hmm.
Like which is wild to me as a Christian. It's not wild to me looking at like hip hop culture or the secular world culture, but
Hmm.
I mean just last night I was in a conversation in a Christian hip hop Telegram chat, and we were talking about something political, and somebody was just talking about how they're grieving about this thing, and I didn't mean to be dismissive about it, but I was like, yeah man, that's like politics. Like until we get over what up aboutism, or what aboutism,
Right.
and dunking on people, it's just going to be that way.
Hmm.
That was me trying to agree with him, but it didn't come across that way as the text. And he lovingly admonished me about it. Like, hey, but like if that person walked into your church tomorrow, wouldn't you preach the gospel to him? I'm like, absolutely I would.
Hmm.
And so it was such a good conversation. And you know what I said? I said, hey man, please forgive me if like I came off as dismissive. That was not my intent.
Hmm.
And I don't see that happening a lot in our space. And I
Right.
think we need to start just admitting just take the L, man. It's okay.
That's where maturity comes into play.
Yeah.
It goes right back to that. Like, if we could just, if again, if we all have the same um, goals, right,
Yeah.
which is to be Christ-like and to live this life as He asks us to live it, and as we chose, because we chose to make as once He called us, we accepted, right? So once we
Yeah.
made that decision, then all right, well now we're all on the same track. Then let's do this thing together, and we would be way stronger as a body. We would be way stronger as a space if we can just get on board with that. But unfortunately, we allow streams and followers and clout and things like that. We allow that to determine who's the leaders, and that shouldn't be the case.
Yeah. What do you think, as we're talking about just like hip hop in general, and even you just being a fan of like battle rap, which is intended to be aggressively about taking down your opponent.
Mhm.
Um, how do you think that influences us as fans? Like, right, like I didn't grow up in the faith. I grew up just a hip hop fan and
Mhm.
had to learn to become a Christian hip hop fan. And it was the first like playground that I changed when I like really started following Christ. I was like, I need to change the music I listen to.
Right.
Um, how do you think that's influencing the way that we treat each other?
How hip hop is?
Yeah, like if hip hop's like money, power, respect,
Hmm.
ego, pride, money, women,
Hmm.
and we are trying to take all of that out of that, but then
Hmm.
still communicate with each other through that medium.
Hmm.
Do you think that's having an impact on the complacency and allowing the carnality to come in? Like, what do you like? How do you resolve that?
I think the resolve is, seeking after the kingdom first,
Yeah,
right? And so if our first and foremost objective is to be Christ-like for ourselves, right? And then our second objective, right, is to then share that with the people that we're coming in contact with. And
yeah,
those are the two main things. And then now we do that in the sphere of hip hop, right?
yeah.
Hip hop is just a vehicle, right? And unfortunately, we've had, and within Christian hip hop, we've allowed hip hop to be our virtual Tesla. Wherever it tell us to go, that's where we're going as a space.
Mm,
And so it's like we get in, Yeah, what's going on today? All right, I guess that's where we're going. And we just kind of follow along, and we curtail some of the language. We flip some things into some scriptures, and then wrap it up in a nice little bow for our youth groups, and hopefully they call us back.
Yeah. What do you think? Okay, that's actually really interesting. I like how you talk about how Christians will take what's going and flip it. I feel.
Essentially,
Go ahead. What was that?
I was going to say essentially, uh, Christian hip hop is still influenced by hip hop.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
and though we have the sound of hip hop, doesn't mean that they should be influencing our characters. They should be
Hmm.
influencing our decisions. They should be, even though we agree with the sound, right? We don't agree with the lifestyle, and I
Yeah.
think that has been a difficult thing to separate for us as a body.
Yeah. I wonder how many like it is a tightrope, right? Because I'm not gonna listen to Kendrick Lamar if he drops an album. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I'm not gonna listen to
yeah,
that.
right,
In fact, I went to his concert last year, and I'm not gonna go to that. You know what I'm
right,
saying? Like
absolutely,
he's one of the best pens to ever write music.
absolutely,
But there is a line where I have to tell myself, like, all right, don't believe the lie that's being told in this song, or don't believe the lie that's being told in that bar.
hmm
So I get it. Like for me, it's I'm like with the artist on like, hey, we have to take what we hear and we have to see what's going on in the space to adapt it to what we want to hear. Because for someone like me, I'll get into kind of I sent you my review and it had a lot of different links to other artists in that. That's me telling you like the when I do that, that's not me like saying, I think you sound like this artist and that sounds like a ripoff.
hmm
That's me telling you you belong in the pantheon because of this. Like all this cohesiveness is actually part of the pantheon of hip hop. And that means that it belongs in there. And a lot of people don't understand that. If I say if they get compared to somebody,
hmm
it's almost an insult to them. Like, oh well,
correct,
I don't want to sound like that. And I'm like,
right.
but that's a compliment.
hmm
Like, in my opinion, do you take compliments? Like, is that how you take it? Or
Yeah, to me, it doesn't really matter. Like I don't look at it like you think I'm trying to copy somebody or anything like
yeah,
that. But I think some people may get defensive that way because they really were copying,
mm,
and that's okay. And I think that's what we need to own, right? Hey, you know what? I was heavily influenced by that person. I didn't know which style or direction I wanted to take, so I took what I enjoyed, which was insert artist, right? And I tried to make that for myself. Yo,
yeah,
that's dope. Hopefully you can learn to be more original, whatever the case is. But if not, that's fine too. But unless we own that and just be okay with it, then there's
yeah.
going to be defensiveness there. So
Man, that's such a good insight right there. I had an interaction with an artist about a month ago. I talked about this on a podcast recently, but he had asked me to review his album. I think he sent it to me the same day you sent me your album too. And I was like, hey, I'll definitely listen to it. I got something else in front of you. I'll get around to it. And he like texted me a couple days later. He was like, hey, have you gotten a chance to listen to it? And I did. And my response to him though was, how well do you take feedback? And he said, you can roast me. And Mike, it was one of the worst albums I'd ever heard in my life. And I gave him like honest, constructive feedback. I didn't just tear him apart. I was like, hey, first of all, I just want to let you know it's hard to even just make an album. The fact that you made a full project,
uh,
hats off to you, man. Like that's
absolutely.
legit.
Yeah.
But and then I just gave him all the like you weren't on cadence, you weren't on beat, you're cussing way too much for a Christian audience. Like,
Right.
I just gave him some raw feedback.
hmm
And I was expecting him to be like, nah, man, you don't know what you're talking about. And he was like, you know what? You're 100% right. Like, I just started this. I've only been doing this for like 6 months. And I'm like, hey, if you've been doing this for 6 months and this is where you're at, that's good.
Right.
Like, let me help you.
hmm
Like, send me your stuff, man. I'm happy to critique it and be like, hey, switch this cadence here. You're
Yeah.
missing the beat here. You're
hmm
doing this there. But
Yeah.
what was interesting about that interaction was because he took that feedback well. Well, actually, let me get to the point I was trying to make. He was telling me that he wanted to bring a new sound to Christian hip hop. And I was like, hey, bro, no one cares. There's nothing new under the sun. Like Ecclesiastes is pretty clear about that.
Right, right.
Why don't you pick some rappers that you like? Try and learn from that and build that sound. Get good at that, and then worry about bringing something new.
Mm-hmm.
Like get good at the fundamentals. Like
Mm-hmm.
go ahead and copy. And he's like, well, who do you think I should listen to? And I'm like, I don't know. You kind of sound like Paris Chariz. Like, check out Paris Chariz, maybe, and like send him a couple other people. And he wrote back like a week later. He's like, "Hey, I've been listening to this. I really like it."
Mm-hmm.
But just the way that he's taking this so well makes me want to track with him.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely.
but yeah, I mean, it's just an interesting. It's interesting how different people respond to different types of feedback.
Mm-hmm.
But
And that's typically rooted in identity.
yep.
So as long as
How do you how do you battle that? Like, how do you battle as an artist not putting your identity in your work, but in Christ?
oh man, that's a constant battle. Like I don't want to say it's a battle. It's a constant remembering, right?
Mm,
Remembering who I am, remembering why I'm doing it, remembering, and faith comes by hearing, right? So in hearing,
yep.
right, we got to keep hearing it, and so there's a constant hearing of, hey, let me reset, let me bring my mind back to, and that's a daily thing, a minute, every second, every time that thought comes, we cast. I'm sorry about the noise.
You good?
Casting thoughts down and making them submit to Christ and things like that. So like that's a lifestyle, and that's not always it's not always easy. And some days you kind of it gets the best of you, and some days you have the victory over it. But the goal is to always have to know that you have the victory. The victory is already won.
Yeah.
It's just catching up to it and manifesting it for that particular day, because it's already available for us, right? And so again, just like anyone else, just have that battle is definitely there though.
Yeah.
So and that's why I love our group chat, man. Because we tell you when it's whack. They'll tell you when it's whack real quick.
What's the harshest feedback they gave you?
So I have a song called, what was the name of that song? Did I call it? I think it's called "Why Do You Do It" or something like that. No, I don't remember what I named it. But it was one of the first records that I dropped since joining TLS. And the first day they said was like, "Yo, this sound like." I think it was Proddy. I think he said like, "Yo, if you're going for the 2012 Lecrae, this is it." Something like that. And it was like, yeah, this sounds really dated. It sounded really dated, and I was like, sheesh, but now I did that in a community of people that care about me, right? So then, yeah, he gave that feedback, but then it's like, yo, I can revamp the beat for you. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? And then then I went back in, changed some of my cadences up, changed my hook up so that way I could be like, oh, okay, I hear it because of the original. Like, and what ended up happening was I wrote to the beat, and because the beat was dated, the flows that I chose was dated,
Oh
and
yeah, yeah.
so once that got updated, then I was able to create a little differently, and so
Okay.
that then became a learning process on my beat selection. You know what I'm saying? And then it just went from there. But yeah, that was the harshest one. They told me it sounded like 2012, 2008 Lecrae, not like just that Reach record sound back then. You know that
Yeah.
everybody
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
that anthem, that anthem thing, like yeah, it was terrible.
So you brought up beat selection. I think one of the things that I really like about Faith Talk was how cohesive every record sounded on here.
Mhm.
How did you select that? Like, what's your criteria that you're looking for when beat selecting and working with people like Cyrus or
Mhm.
Prodi?
Uh, bass, bass. I need that bass to hit so that I'm feeling it, right? I need
Mhm.
distinct bass when I hear the beat, right? and then it's my job to then add that extra element to it with the lyrics to get to make that ride, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, bass is important and melody. So a melody that's very and I guess in some ways um catchy, um and vibey. Like I wouldn't say vibey, that's probably more of a trap sound type, but
Yeah.
more so like a that grittiness. Like
Yeah.
I want you to feel like you riding through North Philly, through Southwest Philly, through West Philly, and you just feel everything around there. But in the midst of that, the lyrics is hopeful. And
Yep.
so when I'm listening to beats, I'm listening to things that's going to give me the feel that's going to give that. You know what I'm saying? So that's really what how I go about it. And now even more specifically, because of TLS, we have like Cyrus and Prodi, and there's a lot of either YJO, Opto, who's also on the project. Um, they they can create uh, they can create the styles that we actually make, and so we're able to have that access and relationship. Whereas though the beat that I gave you an example of, like I was given that beat,
Yeah.
right? But whereas though where I can message Cyrus, he can send me something like, oh, change this or add that, and we can actually work together in building that sound versus going on BeatStars and trying to find something that fits that. That makes a big difference. And so I was really blessed to be able to do that with Cyrus.
How easy is it to collaborate? Because isn't Cyrus isn't in Philly, right?
Mm-mm.
He's like in Cincinnati or something, right?
He was
Or
in Florida.
Ohio? Florida. Oh,
Mhm.
damn. I'm way off. I need to get a map over here of where everyone is and like put pins.
Right, with faces on it. Right?
Yeah, right. How is it to collaborate like cross country, like through I mean, I'm
um,
assuming you're using something, but like how is that like delayed coming in or like how does that affect your process?
well, praise God, man, because for Telegram,
Yeah.
because you could do so much through Telegram, and luckily we're on the same we're in the same time zone, so
Yeah.
that makes it easier. I mean, like, but like, truth is, he's like an hour behind or something like that.
Yeah.
But it really isn't that difficult at all. It's
Good.
really not. Sometimes he may be up at a certain time that I'm not or whatever. But I found that during the beat making process, we found ourselves up at the same time. So
Yeah.
I'll message him thinking, it's 12 o'clock at night. I got an idea, and I'm thinking he'll see this in the morning. We could talk about it, and he's like, "Oh, I'll put something together." Like he's responding right away and things like that. So that really worked out for us in that sense.
What's with musicians and like working late into the night?
Yeah. I
I
don't
feel
know.
like all y'all do that.
I don't know. I don't even like working late at night. But I definitely think that there's a there's a window of opportunity there, especially as a believer, man. Especially as a male believer who some of us have struggled with certain lustful things and pornography, et cetera, et cetera. If you up, man, you better be creating instead of doing some other stuff. You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So it's definitely my personal choice, not my personal choice to do that. But if I'm up and I'm my mind is racing about some music, then laying that down and writing those thoughts out is definitely helpful.
So you're out your EP releases tomorrow.
Mhm.
Are you already working on the next thing or are you focusing on marketing and kind of how to get it out? Like what's your I know certain artists are like on to the next thing.
Mhm.
But some people are like, no, I'm gonna like really focus on pushing this specific project. What's your go-to when releasing?
Both, um, both. I have I have some songs that I'm already creating for beyond the project, but I don't plan on starting to push those right away. I don't want it to be a microwave type of thing.
Yeah.
Um, I want it to be soul food, right? So let some people sit on it. So in Bandcamp, it's coming out on Bandcamp, but
Yeah.
then later down the line, sometime it'll be on DSP, so Spotify, Apple Music, and everything like that. And that's going to be a whole nother release, right? Because
Yeah.
the people who didn't decide to purchase it will then be able to have access to it on there. So then that'll give it like another push, so to speak.
Yeah.
From there, try to again market some more, and then maybe then by that point, probably start thinking about some other songs. I have features and stuff that I'm on and things like that. So that'll help continue the music. But I don't want to rush. Even though I love creating the music, I don't want to rush and cheat myself out of the work that I put in.
Yeah.
So
How many rounds of revision do you think a song goes through before you decide it's done?
depends on the process. So like for myself, um, I have a recording process. Typically, I write as I record.
Okay.
So like that's just kind of been something I've adapted. So um, after I write and record, most of the time, it's not exactly how I want it to sound because I'm
Mhm.
focused on my thoughts, right? So I'll listen to that, then come back a day or two later and touch up some things that I wanted to say a certain way and things like that, and then I'll establish basically a rough draft, so to speak. And then I got that rough draft and listen to it a little bit more. Maybe I like some stuff, change some stuff, um, and then from there ship it off to mixing and mastering. And then there's multiple revisions. But for the writing part, for myself, after all the writing is done, is typically probably one more layer of fixing things. Or I should have let me take out that word, or I should have been a little bit more aggressive in that aspect, or look
Mm.
back in this aspect. But after that, yeah, that's it.
Who are the main voices that you allow speak into that? Like, is there like people that you'll send the roughs to? I mean, you did talk about putting that one song in the TLS chat. Like,
Mhm.
do you do that for every song and kind of no? Okay.
Mhm. So
You're like
so
you gonna get what you gonna get.
Yeah, yeah. So what I do is now my main people that I send that to is me and Truth talk a lot, man. So me and him, I trust him. I trust his ear. I send stuff to him during this project. I've sent stuff to Cyrus because he was making the beats, of course. Uh, Surprisingly, I don't know if you guys. This I think it's kind of odd because of his style, but Just Raised. Just Raised. Yeah,
Yeah, I love his stuff.
yeah, so I send stuff to him, um, Bill B. So those four guys really on a consistent basis is really Truther, Bill, and Just Rays to where I'll send some stuff and they'll give me their feedback. I love going to all of them for different reasons.
Yeah.
Truther is very technical, right?
Okay.
And so he going to catch the stuff I'm trying to get through customs. I don't want to do it again, but he going to be like, yo, you need to say that again, right? And so I love that accountability because otherwise I'll just let it slide like, oh, it's good enough, right? Um, Just Raise is going to touch on the melodic aspect of things, right?
That
Like,
makes
hey,
sense. That makes a lot of
I'm,
sense.
I'm doing boom bap, right, and I'm gritty, but he can hear the melody in it for some ways. So he'll be like, yeah, drop out this word or say this like that, and Bill same way. Like Bill is he got the bar. He's like very technical from a bar aspect, and so he's definitely going to highlight the weak bars versus the stronger bars, et cetera, et cetera. So it definitely kind of comes together, and then I go from there.
It's like your own little council.
Yeah, yeah, you definitely need that. And then from there, like once I get my general rough draft, like from that, then I'll drop it into the TLS chat, and they'll get a general rough draft. And sometimes people give their advice and stuff like that or their thoughts, and sometimes I take it, sometimes I don't. Most of the time, I go. By the time I get to the TLS chat now, I'm pretty I'm pretty solid on what I want to do.
Yeah.
And that came with growth because it was a point where there was a lot of second guessing, about whether it was good or not, et cetera, et cetera. Got to the point where now it's just like I'm pretty confident that this is it, and maybe I need an extra thought or opinion on something that I'll throw to some people.
Yeah, man, that's actually a really interesting. This is why I do this show. It's why it's called the process because that's the kind of information that I think is fascinating to me as an artist.
This is
So
important, man, because I'm sorry to cut you
no,
off,
you go.
but I think it's important because, like, let's just take Critique Friday, right? So I'm an artist. I get a song, right? I create the song. I get the song mixed and mastered. I send it into OB. OB, like, yo, the song is pretty good, but you could have did this, you could have did that, this, that, and third. He starts to give his critique, right? And now, as an artist, I may want to fix it, but I also just paid for everything, and
Yeah,
I might even have a release date already, right?
yeah,
Or I paid for my mixing and mastering. I can't get another revision, right? And so now it's like I'm sad about the song because now I dislike it because maybe OB just tore it apart, right? And but at the same time I can't fix it because of financial reasons or resources, right? And
yeah.
so now what we did was we brought that to ourselves, and we can now refine that with before getting to that point, before you mix and master yourself, before you put it on iTunes and stuff like that, get that
Mhm.
critique versus thinking that you got the greatest song, releasing it, and now everybody's telling you, giving you critiques, and now you walking away discouraged. You
Yeah.
know, so yeah,
That
that's kind of
that's smart, man. I mean, like my 9 to 5. So I work at my church, and I'm the lead project manager for our creative team.
dope.
And we instituted a dailies process to like critique everyone's work.
Mhm,
Um, and it's like the whole team is in a room looking at somebody's work, whether it be a graphic design, a reel or a video that we've done or something that we've created, and we just tear it apart, you know. And it took me coming from, I used to work in the video game industry, coming from there where like you just take that stuff on the chin and you're just like, okay, cool, I'm going to go back to the drawing board and finish this out the way with the feedback you gave. But you do that to people who are like new to that kind of structure,
mhm.
it could crumble them. And
Yeah.
so, but if you have trusted people that you know want what's best for you
Mhm.
in like what the art is supposed to do, and also will encourage you to be like, hey, like your identity is not in this work. Like
Yeah,
we are doing this to glorify God.
absolutely.
When you have that mindset and you have those trusted people that also understand that, it's a really good process that's going to develop you to be just a better artist in
Mhm.
general. And
Absolutely.
so I think it'll be really interesting to hear over the next few years how you develop because of that process that you have.
Yeah.
Because this album, I mean, this EP is it's one of the most fun things I've listened to in a while. Like, you know, I live in a Dallas suburb, so it's not Philly,
Right.
but like, I mean, I was mobbing in my car with this. Like,
Mhm.
I had the windows down,
Mhm.
I had the bass all the way up. Like,
Mhm.
this was fun. Like,
Mhm.
this is exactly like the kind of album I want if I'm having like a day where I got to go kick down some doors and
Mhm.
I need to like get some courage up. And so
Mhm.
I felt like this album had a lot of like, well, it's funny, you're from Philly.
Mhm.
It reminded me of like Rocky running up, you know, running up the stairs or something. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
this album makes you want to kick down a door. Like
Mhm.
this would be like a good workout album. It'd be a good driving album. Like what part of my process is how does the album sound in the car?
Yeah.
This one sounds sick.
You know,
Um,
I'll give you this. So like I said, I write as I record,
yeah,
right? But a lot of my thinking happens in the car.
yeah,
So a lot of my thinking have in the car now. I do a lot. I may have a bar or two while I'm driving or something. Maybe the start of how I'm going to start a verse or a hook or something like that. And that's all. Especially this particular project, it was all in the car, right? And so you heard the song "Painted Skies," right?
hmm
So I'm talking about the sky. I was
yeah,
driving to work. You know what I'm saying? And those things was hitting me. So yeah, it's just ride with me, right? It's all intentional, you know. It's all intentional, really. Like fearless. We're talking about driving, right? It just so happened that in the car I'm driving, so I'm relating a lot of things, a lot of driving metaphors throughout the project. Even my
yeah,
skits, they were driving in the skits, You know, man, that's how you supposed to drive, right?
Yeah.
Ride with me. So all of that stuff connects.
Well, and I think the interesting thing too, I talked about how the album's very cohesive. You know, your first song is Ride With Me. Your second song is Roadkill, which um, I thought was kind of funny. And then you have Painted Skies, which is you're talking about, and that was with Q, who I think has the most unique sound in Christian hip hop. Period. I hope he's coming to Smoke Fest this year. He said he might come. I want to meet him. But the way that you even picked that beat to complement his voice was good. And then you go into, and I mean, this is me just getting like super granular and gritty about like how I'll pick apart an album and listen to it. But so I'm thinking about how you've connected voices, and then you go into a song called Ya Mean, which is an onomatopoeia, which is like a thing of a voice. And so like there's just this like element that it feels very intentional the way that you're putting these songs here. And that's what I love. So talk to me like how you structured that.
With the track listing.
Yeah, like it felt very intentional to me.
Yeah, so it was. I listened to it. I had certain things in certain spaces, right? Off of generally what I thought, right? What I felt, etc. Like we just start off with, I knew I created Ride With Me specifically to be an intro, and I created Talk to Him to be the last track, right? So then I just had to figure out the other four. And so that part was actually a little back and forth. Truther, Bill, and Just Rays helped me with those as well. I think the main person was Truth, and me and Truth really went back and forth about. We just played every version of every way a track can go. We played it, and I'm like, well, what do I want to experience?
Yeah.
Right? Because now at that point in time, as an artist, all of those songs are ours. So we're constantly still critiquing in certain ways. So I had to take myself away from that and just listen to the music.
Yeah.
Right. And so, all right, well, I started going from there. So after initially like Roadkill was gonna be like 3 or 4. But I'm like, nah, after that intro, I want to punch him in the mouth. Right?
Yeah.
I need that face. I need your lip to come back up after that. Ride with me. I want your lip to come right back up. And so, boom, you hear the call from upstairs saying, "Come on up!" Right off the jump, going into that second track. And then it's like, all right, cool. We done punched them in the mouth for the first two songs. Let's back up a little bit. We still gonna jab them though. That's why the verses is still we still gonna give you some things, but we got Q in there to help you out a little bit, like some of that blood off. Right, but then we right back in it, with that "Ya Mean." Now we put your fist back up. Ya Mean, right?
Dude, Ya Mean's nasty.
Yeah, and then from there on out, the way I wanted to, I just kind of wanted to. I think of it like an avalanche, like almost like a flurry or a combo. Okay. So you go Ya Mean, fearless, talk to him.
Talk to him. Yeah.
It's just like you just getting more and more. Your face is getting more and more ugly as you listen to the track after. Just like, oh my god! By the time you done, you like, woo! Play that jump back, play that experience. You know what I mean? So that's really what I was going for.
Yeah, man, that Roadkill joint. I wrote. I'm looking at my notes here of what I wrote. I said, "Song is too short. I wanted one more 16." I was really vibing to this. Like I was like, "Give me more of that." Like I was ready. And then, but Painted Skies was also just a good like palate cleanser to get into Ya Mean. And then even again, like just talking about the cohesion, Ya Mean being an onomatopoeia. Then you have Fearless, and you have Talk to Him. Like you're literally telling. This is like a locker room pre-football game. Like get your chest out. We're gonna go. Like this is what I want to listen to before we go to the apocalypse. You know what I'm saying? Like when we're in heaven and we're like on horses or whatever behind Jesus, and he's like, "Y'all ready?" I'm gonna be like, "Yup, I got Mike Wise on. Let's go."
Yep,
and we're gonna go.
Yeah, exactly.
This is that album. So,
Mhm.
man, like what are you wanting? I mean, I know I kind of asked you this a little bit earlier, but like, what are you wanting people who listen to this? What's the song that you're like, hey, this is the part, and you don't have to get too into it because I know you want to maybe save it for. I know you said you're releasing like a commentary on each song, but is there a song in here that you feel like, hey, people are going to need to listen to this 3 or 4 more times before they get to it,
Um,
get to the meaning at least?
I think I think they all are similar to that to a certain degree because of my writing style. But if I had to
Yeah.
pick one, I think I would go with Roadkill.
Okay.
I think I will go with Roadkill. There's some layers in that particular track that you can kind of go you can go real deep with that, man.
Yeah, that you have a bar in there that says my savior took a pay cut, boy you think you Jesus. Like that, like I was like, what did he just say? Like I got to think about that real quick.
Mhm.
Pay cut, like Jesus taking a pay cut, like he is leaving heaven. He like I had to like get into that mindset. That was such a like yes,
Mhm.
totally
Yeah,
agree. That's the
yeah,
song.
and that it's a punchline, but then it's a revelation of
Mm-hmm.
what he's done for us, and then it's like, who you think I'm made of?
Yep.
Like, boy, you think you Jesus? I'm like, who you think I'm like? Yes,
Yes.
I am him. He's in me. I'm in him. Like it's just like we're getting into identity, right?
Yep.
And so it's like that track is really about identity, and it's crazy. It's dying to the old thought of yourself,
Yeah.
right? That's the roadkill, and,
Yeah.
and and walking into that newness. So, yeah, that's my jam right there. So,
What if I'm having the opportunity to sit with maybe like a new believer who I'm trying to convert to CHH, like, hey, you should start listening to this, and I have them listen to this album
mhm,
or this project. I keep saying album; it's an EP.
mhm,
If I have them listen to this,
mhm.
what would you want me to tell this person about this? Like, what would like I would have my own thing that I would interpret, but what would you want me to say about your project to somebody who's never heard of you and hasn't listened to it yet?
It's the best of both worlds. You're going to get the spiritual edification that you want and or need, and you're going to get the the sonic, um, I guess the sonic pleasure, if you will, or gratification of musically speaking that you can literally enjoy if you do not want any spiritual growth or edification. You can listen to it and still like it because the metaphors and the similes and the things that I'm talking about and the topics that I choose is very relatable. But then if you're interested in the spiritual things, you dive a little deeper, then you'll get that as well. So I feel like it's the best of both worlds, the best of the spirituality of what we need and what we like as believers to continue to stay edified, and then as what we need and what we like as just musicians and hip hop heads, sonically speaking. So that's what I would say about it.
Yeah, man, I already have like 4 or 5 friends that are actually not believers. They're all guys I grew up with back in California, and I can't wait to like have them hear this because I think this is so palatable for anybody. And I send them Christian hip hop all the time, and they don't care. They're like, not that they don't care about me sending it; they don't care that it's Christian. They just want good music.
Correct. Hmm.
And so this is going to be one that I think I'm going to send to a specific subset of my friends that is also going to remind them of that kind of Cannibal Ox
Hmm.
blueprint, like that just guttural early 2000s underground sound that
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just didn't get to hear because they were listening to too much mainstream. I don't know.
Right. I have a coworker. He was like, we was talking about TikTok and things like that, and I'm like, I don't necessarily go to work like, hey, I rap, like
Yeah.
but I was like, yeah, I got a TikTok, stand a third, and he clicked on one of my once he went to the profile, he clicked on one of the videos for Yamin, and he was watching it, and he was listening. He was looking. He's like, oh yeah, this is dope. Like I'm gonna check you out, right? And I'm willing to bet anything that he did not know was Christian, right? I got another coworker who I work pretty close with. He was just in class. We were in the class because I instruct on traffic control, and so he was in the
Okay.
class, and he was like, yo, I said something slick, and I was like playing around with the class, like, yeah, I got bars or whatever I said, and he was like, nah, he's serious, he really got bars, like his music is really dope, et cetera, but the guy saying that was a Muslim, and
Yeah.
so he's been listening to my music and been checking my music out, and the whole time he claims to not believe in Jesus, but he will soon enough. You know what I mean? He keep listening. You know what I mean? And that's the point. And that's the point. You know,
Yeah.
for the carnal or for the not so trained spiritual ears to be able to enjoy it, but for the spiritual ears that do have ears to hear it, they're gonna hear it in a completely different way. You know, so it's
Yeah,
gonna be
man.
a position.
One of my best friends is a Muslim, and I send him the stuff all the time. He loves it. Like he's a big Indie Tribe fan. He loved the TLS album. Like,
That's
and
wild.
it's like, he just loves good music, whether or not. And like we just talk about faith all the time.
That's dope.
Um, and it's at the end of the day, like we're still. I'm not making like an argument that all paths lead to the same place because they don't.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like we still respect each other's faith in the sense that like, hey, we at least have a common ground of a conservative faith value that
Mhm.
not conservative politically, but like conservative in like we treasure this and uphold tradition
Mhm.
um, for like a faith based life, and so
Right.
it's really interesting to see that interact. So now that I know that you do traffic control for like planes.
Oh no! It's like on the road, like construction type of traffic control.
Okay, so I need you to answer this question because this is driving. We're going like totally left turn right now because when you said that, I thought that's what you were talking about. The on ramp on the freeway is designed for you to speed up to the like the amount the speed limit, right?
So when you're getting on, when you're driving onto an on ramp, you should be gradually going into the speed of the actual expressway that you're working on.
I need you to come to Dallas and I need you to have an all city PSA to teach people how to do that because
Now
they
also
be getting on at 40 miles an hour.
Now, also too is the other way around. They do it the opposite because then when we get off the road and you're driving 70, but the
Yep.
ramp says go 40, right, or
Yeah.
20 or whatever it says, but we still go 70, and
Yep.
so we gotta reverse that. So yeah, absolutely,
We need to make some training videos for America out here.
yeah, man.
But okay, good. That's my biggest pet peeve
You know,
next
the one
to
thing
food.
that I noticed about when it comes to driving is that no matter where you are, if it's not you, you think those people can't drive.
Yep. Yep.
So, like you could be in
Totally
your
true.
own city, like yo, man, my city they can't drive nowhere. You go to New York, man, these New Yorkers don't know how to drive.
Yeah,
Well,
that's so
nobody know how
true.
to drive, and that's the key. None of us know what we're doing. You
Yep.
know what I'm saying? So
100% true. That's hilarious, man. Because I don't think there's a day that goes by where I don't get a little bit of road rage because the person in front of me is going 40 miles an hour trying to merge onto a 70, and I'm behind you, and I'm like, I'm gonna get hit.
mhm.
Like,
No, you know,
um,
one of my pet peeves, I know we gotta go. One of my pet peeves is like we have on ramps that like in certain expressways that like are so packed that we have lights there,
oh
right?
yeah, yeah.
And
They have
so
that in Cali. Yeah,
yeah, so like one of the things that bother me is like when there's nobody there and the person stopping. It's like, yo, what are you doing? Like,
yeah. Just go.
it's meant to help you get on with other people, not when you're sitting there by yourself. And so
Yeah.
you
Well, hey man, how can we as a Christian hip hop community and fans, how can we pray for you as this release rollout comes? Like what are the things that you need us to pray for you for?
oh well, man, I always want to be prayed for as it pertains to like my family and
Okay.
my children and all that stuff. Of course, we never can take enough praise for that. But as it pertains to the project, just that it reaches the people that God intends for it to reach, and that whoever comes in contact with it, that they get closer to God in some way, shape, or form. Even if the song just inspires them to open up their Bibles or pray, or maybe I need to go to church or look at my Bible app. I ain't look at it in a week. Whatever it is, the littlest
Yeah.
thing. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the goal, man. The goal is that we have the faith conversation or the faith talk, so that way our faith can be grown within ourselves. So that's my desire for to see with this project.
Sweet, man. Well, let me pray for you, and man, we'll be listening to this album tomorrow. I can't wait. I can't wait to hear the kind of. I'll be checking in with you during the week, like, hey, what's the response been like? How's it been going? And I'll do that. But yeah, man, let me pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for tonight. Thank you for Mike. You are a wonderful creator, God. You've created everything for us, in spite of our rebellion, and I thank you that you have gifted Mike with the ability to create and reflect you, in the art that he chooses, which is hip hop. I pray that you would use this project to reach, men and women around the world. I pray that it would inspire them to, search their heart for you, and look for you in scriptures, and maybe just start a conversation with somebody about, their connection to you. I pray that you continue to chase us, even as we create the creators. I pray that you chase us into union with you, and that you would guide our steps, that you would go before us, and that you would, establish for us the way that we would love our families, love our community, love the fans, and love the artists. I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you.